Okay, my friends, prepare yourself. I am about to talk about Neil Degrasse Tyson, who is a science communicator. He's a big shot talking about all kinds of things about science. And he is talking about what happens to you after you die. And this is the topic for the day today. Okay, so a friend of mine, John Hernandez, sent me this clip about Neil Degrasse Tyson talking about what happens after you die. Now, it's just a little shorty. I'm going to play it for you right now.
A lot of people want to know what happens after they die. You put together all scientific evidence, biological and physics. You have no existence after you die. You can believe what you want in a country where we have protection of religious expression, but if you want to ask science what science says about it, you go into a state of non-existence. You can say, well, why is that? What's that like? I'll tell you exactly what it's like. This is what it was like before you were born. You're not asking yourself, what was it like before I was born? I had to have some existence. You didn't. You have no existence. A state of non-existence before you were born. So I'm not given reason to think that your state of non-existence in death differs in any fundamental way from your state of non-existence before you're born, giving that much more meaning to what it is you can and should do while you're alive in this world. A lot of people want to know it.
Yeah, exactly, Neil. Let's talk, my friend. I have some things to discuss with you about astrophysics, about light research, about what happens to you after you die. And I would love to make a discussion with you. I've been following you for years. Everybody has, and they know what you have to say. But you need to speak to people that also have information that may change the way you feel. If you're a real scientist, you will engage. I haven't found that yet in science. When he says if he's talked to a scientist, well, scientists won't talk to you if you don't repeat what they tell you to say. And I got a feeling is what's going to happen. I've tried to contact him many times and never had any response whatsoever. And not from any of them that are in academia, because they are the only culture that exists in history that has no God. Have no God. There's nothing. You're born, you die, that's it. Case closed. You're dust, you're dust. Have a good time, party your ass off while you're alive, because you're just going to die and it's all over. That's not my world, and that's not my research shows that is not correct, Neil. Let's talk. Okay, this is Neil Degrasse Tyson, and he's got all the credentials, and he's a science communicator, going to all kinds of schools and presents the academia approach to science, and he pretty much mimics what they say, and he just announces the things. Basically, right now, that's how I see him. And there's a new series coming up that I think it's NASA's putting it out. But anyway, they're talking about Star Talk and National Geographic series and Cosmos and Space-Time Odyssey and Carl Sagan's series Cosmos, and all of these things have been presented in such a way as to make you feel that they're factually true, and there's no exception to this. Now, I am presenting exceptions, and as if Neil is truly a scientist, as he presents himself to be, then he's got to deal with material science. I'm not being theoretical here. This is material stuff, so let's get started. All right, this is about Mars, and they have 2 landers up there right now. They have the Curiosity, been there for a bazillion years, almost, I guess, 8 years or so now. And then they have the Perseverance, which is just recent. Now, they're sending back all kinds of things, and scientists confirmed some previously held scientific theories about Mars and turned others upside down. And you're not kidding when you talk about upside down. There is life smeared all over Mars. Now, Neil Tyson is an astrophysicist. That's what he has to say about my observations of Mars. Now, before I get started, I want you to know, like I said, I have literally thousands of people that I get information from, and they send me all kinds of things. And I am hooked in with some people from NASA and European Space Agency and other areas. They don't want to be talked about. They don't want their name mentioned by any means. But they are giving me things to look at and things to consider and things to think about. Now, it's longer than I thought. The Curiosity rover has been up over 11 years. I went up there in 2012, and this is that little robot, and it's driving around and it's finding all kinds of things. And the first things it found, I'm going to show you the first things it found, and they have just been basically erased from the history of this exploration. I am going to resurrect it right now. All right, here's what I want you to remember. They found blueberries, these little blueberries on Mars, and they are dense with hematite. Hematite is red iron, which is literally blood. So now we have the Mars blueberries. I'm going to show you this in much greater detail in a moment. What else did they find? They found a crab on Mars. All right, again, I'll show you this in extreme detail. Is this a giant crab? Now this goes back to 2015, and I posted on this at the same time. I said, I know exactly what it is. It's not a crab, and I'll show you exactly what it is. But this was all over the news at that time, and then they dropped it. They dropped the blueberries. They dropped the Mars Morse code. That's another one. Here it is again. Time magazine. Once again, this goes way back to 2016. This is the Mars Morse code. I'm going to explain to you precisely what that is, how it formed, and why it's there. They say the message, like a big joke, to the extent it exists, is a series of dots and dashes on the Martian surface photographed by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. They look for all the world as if it's written in Morse code, even if that code would be gibberish when translated. And then they go on to explain how this happened. Well, I'm going to explain it to you. All right. This is the crab on Mars. Again, Time magazine, all big deal about it. What is this looking thing? This is crazy. Of course it's not a crab. Blah, blah, blah. It's just a rock. Well, let's see what it is. All right, now this is some of the latest images from Perseverance. What I want you to look at is all these little slabs. You see that? What the hell is going on there? And all of this dusty stuff here, this black and red. What's going on with that? Well, let's take a little closer look. Okay, so Neil, I'm going to do an interview in absentia because I can't get through to any of these guys. But anyway, Neil, you just saw what I presented to you from NASA. This is from your people showing what is up on Mars. And I agree with what they're showing. I disagree, however, with their interpretation. And I will show you my interpretation. Now, as a scientist to scientist, I'm a material scientist. You're an astrophysicist. You're all those kind of things. What is your opinion of my opinion? All right, and we'll be respectful. I can be very respectful if I'm listened to, but when I'm just told I'm an idiot, I don't get very respectful to those kind of people. So I'm hoping you, as a science communicator, will discuss this with me. So here's my interpretation of what's on Mars. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Right away, they said that NASA Curiosity rover may have found fossils on Mars, and then it became a real pushback by academia, and here's what they had to say, and here's what I have to say. Okay, Dr. Tyson, I'm going to call you Neil. Is that all right, Neil? You can call me Roger. Now, what are we looking at here? Remember the Mars blueberries. And what is this that it's sitting on? What is that? And what are these blueberries made out of? And why are they just laying like that? Well, what's going on there? All right, this is what they couldn't figure out at NASA. So they just walked away from it. Okay, now, Neil, this is fascia. I literally, and I'm not kidding you, I know it's bragging, but I literally discovered this layer was a fluid-filled highway. They always thought it was, go back and look it up, 2018, Meet Your Newfound Organ Interstition. I was posting, and I have a paper on this from 2015, 2016 on academia.edu that says this was one giant system, and now they agree. In 2018, they said, yes, the interstitium is a fluid-filled highway. Look it up. Here's where all these balls are. You see these balls? Those are the Mars blueberries. Oh, no, how could they be that big? They're in the skin. Well, they become much, 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 much bigger. Now, those balls held these springs. These brown parts are springs. They open up the fluid-filled bags. You can stretch this way, stretch that way, stretch this way, and these will pull and they'll gather. But they'll always come back to where the springs are and the balls. The balls are the last thing to go. These are tough too. This stuff is floppy and weak. That's why you can pull around and your skin can do all these things. But in the real skin, this is actual tissue. That's how many balls there are. They're just everywhere. They're just everywhere. That's why they're laying around all over the place. And not just up on Mars. This is here on Earth. These are what they call the Moki marbles. It's the exact same thing, laying on the same surface. All right, that's the basement layer of skin. And above that basement layer is the interstitium, and above that is the skin. And here it is right here. And this is over in the United Kingdom. And I'm told I'm pronouncing this thing wrong, but I think it's called something like Huntington's Beach or Huntington, something like that. And this is just nothing but mud, which is running off of the red flesh. This is flesh. And these are the marbles, the Moki marbles, the Mars blueberries. They're the same thing as these. And they're eroding out of this wall of really red flesh. And that is the skin or the interstitium that sits on the top. But this is the layer that would have been moving around when this thing was alive, and these would have made it all come back to where it's supposed to be. And guess what that is? That's the Mars Morse code. All right, don't forget, this is the Mars Morse code, this exact same stuff, and there's a couple places it's pinched and a couple places it's stretched. And the places it's stretched, some of the balls are just sitting there all by themselves. And here it is. There's a Mars Morse code. This is pinched skin, and that's pinched. This is stretched out skin, and those little things I told you, those straps, they stretch. But they want to come back to where the balls are. Here, the balls are all by themselves because that is a mound. All right, and so is this. And that's a cavity down there, so the wind is swept across there. This is not erosion. Now, everybody always goes, this is not on Mars, this is on Earth. Don't start with that, please. This is on Mars. There is no question. There will be no erosion like that on Earth. It's literally impossible. If there's any rain falling, you will have little rivulets and all kinds of different erosion patterns. There is none of that. This is literally sandblasted. You look at this carefully. All right, so don't tell me this is on Earth. I hate that. I get this all the time from people. That is, oh, there is no Mars, there's none of this, they're all lying to you, that's all fake. No, I very, very carefully study these things. Trust me. And again, please, don't do that here. Now, this is the skin where it isn't stretched or it isn't gathered. That's what it's supposed to be like. And this would go back to being like that here if the thing had stayed alive. Now, I do understand that the creatures that were here on Earth were absolutely stunningly large. I mean, think of it, if this is skin. And it's true, they were here. And it's just exactly what they said in the ancient texts. Now, Neil, what do you think about that? I mean, that's a whole nother area to get into. Your father was a sociologist. He studied societal influences. Now, right now, academia has such an influence on the mind of the students that they're not allowed to even consider the possibility that there's even, like you say, you die, you're dead, you're dead. That's it, case closed. It's a case for you, is all over. Now, I find that hard for you to really stand behind that, given the evidence I'm going to show. Because I was with you, my friend. Trust me, I was with you for many, many years. And I had no concept of any of this. This just fell into my lap. And when it did, I had to study every bit of detail about it. And now I am to the point where I understand basically this was all reality. There's no jokes here. And Neil, if you are a true scientist, I would think you'd find this fascinating. So I'm hoping. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, the Mars blueberries and the Mars Morse code is basically the same sort of stuff. It's the blueberries that are left over after the erosive part gets sandblasted away. And that leaves all this dust around. So now let's get to the Mars crab. Is there a crab on this? Is Time magazine. This is no joke. They saw it there, and they couldn't explain it, so they walked away from it, just like they did every other bit of it. All right, before we get too deep into this, what I'm going to be talking about is serious update to geology. And already Yale has agreed that my mud fossils are, in fact, exactly what I'm saying they are. Exceptionally preserved soft body creatures. And they are not only here, they're on Mars. And that right there is on Mars. It's called the Mars crab. It's not a crab. I'll tell you exactly what it is. But a friend of mine asked if he could put my papers in books. And you know, he's just, it's a very nicely done deal as far as I can see. And here I had my CAT scans done by Jesse Grant and Associate, best people in the whole world for CAT scans. I have two of my giants. I have one about 50 feet and another one about 200 feet. Those are both DNA tested. I talk about a lot of things in here, and some stuff he throws in here too. I don't know, you know, basically it's his books. I have nothing to do with the books. But he's using my research, and he's got them on all of my stuff. He's got them on the dipole electron flood theory, and on the mud fossils, and the giants, and history, and religion. And I mean, he's doing a good job at presenting my stuff in like coffee table type books. And again, this is updated, and a lot of it is very, very sparse little information. And he's, you know, inflating a little bit, which is good. We need to get this out and talked about. And some of this stuff may not be right. Well, that's just the way history works. You're not right the first time on everything. But if you do enough research, you can find out and put the pieces together. And that's what I've done. And I'm telling you, the pieces fit. And that, my friend, is an artery. These are artery blood vessels. They go into this sarcomeres, which are muscles. That's the vein right above it. The vein sucks the blood back. The artery pushes the blood down into these little spots. You see this? You see that? That's a muscle sarcomere. Pay close attention to this. First of all you have here is eroded dust. That, my friends, is red blood cells and red, you know, what would be in your blood. Let's just go with blood. And it's dried out, and it's just powdered off and dropped down here. And that's where it is, right down here. This is here. These are sarcomeres. And what is a sarcomere? Your muscles have to contract. Well, how do they do that? How does your muscles contract? You ever think about that? Well, they just get big in one area, and well, that's true. But why? Because of the sarcomeres. All right, when these things pull together, they fill up these little slabs. These are the connective tissues. All of the stuff that pulls together, the red stuff has eroded out of it. Let me show you what that looks like in the anatomical. And remember, look at these slices right down here, right down here, right down here, all down, down, down. And then right here feeds all of this. All right, because you need a lot of red blood, and the red blood comes out of here to power muscles. A lot of red blood, a lot, especially when you're doing a lot of work. Now, you say this is impossible, it's just too big. Well, yes, it's gigantic, and there's things on Earth just as big. I showed you that stuff on Huntington Beach, and there's bigger ones than that. Bigger ones than that. I can't account for it, but it did say in the ancient texts that the Earth is nothing but a corpse. And it's nothing but bodies. And Jesus Christ actually was the one that said that. It's in the Gnostic text, but it was supposedly the words of Jesus Christ. And it's in the Gospel of Thomas. All right. So anyway, right now they can't deal with this because this upsets everything that we have been taught from academia. I mean, literally everything. Neil, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I mean to be, as a scientist, saying, this is new information, can we look at it? And then Neil would say to me, well, who says these are sarcomeres? And I said, well, let's see what the anatomical version is, and if we can understand the red hematite blood that has evaporated out of there, and what was left was the connective tissue. Can I show that? Can I prove that? I think I can. Can I prove that it's on Earth and it's in spectacularly huge places? Yes, I think I can. Can I prove that there's muscle sarcomeres just like this, And then somebody had such a big artery that they carved into that artery and made a building out of it, out of an artery. Can I prove that? Yes, I think I can. All right, take your time and look at this. These are those sarcomeres. And you see there's a darkish looking stuff and then there's white looking stuff. Well, that's because there's connective tissue that goes across here. And that's the stuff that didn't erode. That's those little tiny slabs. There's a million of them. When these things contract, this is what happens down here. This is a contracted muscle. They fill right in together here. These are just laying out relaxed. So they're open. But when the thing died, all of this red stuff ran out, and all you had left was all those little slabs, and then these breaks in between all those blocks. Let's look at that one more time. And they're all over up there on Mars. Mars is just like Earth, and I can show you on Earth the exact same thing as these, and they're so big, it's beyond human ability to comprehend that until you, as a scientist, Neil, examine what I'm showing. All right, so one more time. Here we are up on Mars with a gigantic artery, and we have all of these sarcomeres with it's all eroded away because it's extremely dry up there. If it was on Earth, this would still be completely packed in with red blood. It would be just literally packed with red blood, and these would still have, they wouldn't be opened up like this. They wouldn't have eroded out because you're still in a moist environment. And that is exactly what happened at Petra. All right, here it is. Here's Petra. You're going to say, oh, that's crazy, insane. Well, I didn't say it wasn't crazy and insane. I'm just saying this is what it is. This was an artery. And they just dug out of that artery and made some beautiful handicraft out of it, a beautiful building. And inside the treasury, I'll show you in a second, these are the sarcomeres. You see how they have the dark side and then these are how they pulled together. But on Earth, these blocks didn't erode away and leave these gaps. There would have been a gap right down here and a gap right down here and a gap right down here. And they didn't do that. Some places they did, but this, maybe even they flattened this out, I don't know. Because I can show you a lot of them have gaps. But this is the main artery. And they just chiseled it away and made into it. And I can show you, well, I will show you right now. But these little holes here, I believe they put these little holes in there to let some of the air dry it out. I think they carved this while it was still somewhat moist. You see this? This is nothing more than connective tissue and bloody tissue, and that's where blood would have come in to this. This is inside the treasury after they chiseled away and made that facade. And this is what's inside. This is biology, my friend. That is not just some rocks. That was biology at one time. There's rock now, yes. See, this is Petra. And this was one of the arteries, and these were arteries, and this was the main artery that fed all of that stuff to bring blood to all of these sarcomeres. These are all sarcomeres. And there's the treasury right there. They carved out from the main feed. That's the main feeder into all of these areas that brought blood around to all, because you have to have blood servicing every single cell in your body. Think about this now. Every single cell in your body, of which there are trillions and trillions and trillions, has to be serviced continuously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and just over and over and over. I mean, very quickly. It has to have new oxygen, and it has to take out the trash. Whatever you use in there has to be moved, and that's what the blood does that. All the lymph and the blood and so forth. Vein blood primarily brings it back, but the artery blood brings the red stuff in to make all these things power. Now, above the treasury, up in this area, you can see all the connective tissue as well. And here's what it looks like here. This is all connective tissue. That's all the white stuff is connective tissue. All the red stuff is sarcomere stuff. And then there'll be some black. You see the black little stripes in here? The red and the black. The black is where veins collected some and brought that stuff back. The red is the good blood coming in. The black is the bad blood going back and into the lymph and so forth. But this is all body tissue. All right, I mentioned that I have a lot of people that are interested and send me a lot of things to look at. Now, my friend Pedro, hello Pedro, thank you, my good friend. He was with NASA and the European Space Agency. He's retired now, but he gets all their information, and he's just sends us a lot of stuff. Now, this is about the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter top science results. And they found that everything is upside down. Turned up other things totally upside down to the way of thinking. It says the changed views of Mars history is complicated and diverse. Multiple observations have dispelled any possible notion of Mars as a barren, static place. And my stuff dispels it as being void of life. It's completely saturated with life up there. So they're taking on a new idea of it, and they're having a whole new series. Listen to this. He just sent me this too. Again, Pedro, thank you, my friend. Now, this is about this new series they're going to have called NASA Explore, something like that. I guess it's, yeah, NASA Explorers. And this is based on OSIRIS-REx team as they face it. And I know exactly what that sample is. They collected a sample out there of OSIRIS-REx. I know exactly what it is. So they're going to have a new series. Now, I think I should be able to comment on this. I'm showing things that are very valid and need to be discussed. You know, they're going to be talking about a lot of things, and I'm sure some of it will have substance and some of it won't. But my stuff has substance, and Neil Degrasse Tyson, as a superhero. All right, here he is. There's the guy. He can help us. Or he could at least discuss this. I don't care about help, you know, to change everything because I'm just pushy and I just want things changed. I want things changed. I want things to be understood. And I know that Neil has an idea that you die and you just become dust. Now, there's so much written in these ancient texts that I think he may have just refused to look at because it really is nonsense until you realize that it's true. And it's still nonsense, but it is true and just stunning. As I showed you, I think I showed you this as being a hair follicle. The damn thing's very, very large. I think I showed you that. This is a hair follicle. And I have the same thing here. You see that red blood? That's the same thing as the crab. There's the crab right there. It's just eroded here on Earth. But this is all muscle, and this is the shoulder that it attached to, I believe. This is tendon right here. That's tendon. And then this comes into the muscle. I understand this stuff very, very well. And here's the hair follicle somewhere. Here it is right here. I think I did show you this, but maybe not. I get interrupted so many times that I get lost. That's the muscle attachment, and that's the sebaceous gland. And that's the hair shaft. And there's the artery and vein at the bottom. And it's very, very, very large. And these creatures were gigantic. And my other stuff is DNA tested, CAT scan, the whole 9 yards. So Neil, as a scientist, I'm sure is going to find this pretty fascinating. And even the mountains that we have here, that's not just a mountain, that's muscle. It didn't erode like that and erode like this and erode like that and sediment here and sediment there. The red is the red blood, and it's eroding out basically like that on Mars. These are the sarcomeres. And this is the guy's van. And again, the people send me, I don't even know where this is, but I get so many things sent to me that I just store them, and eventually I go back and look at them and see what sense it makes as I'm looking at other things. And this is nothing more than the same sarcomeres. And that's a band of heavy-duty connective tissue. It's just nothing but biology that I can find. Nothing but biology. Something that these explorers from NASA should be interested in. All right, see this? Neil, check this out now. That is the shoulder joint or hip or whatever it was, but it's a big attachment. And then from here over to here is a tendon. And then that's an abrupt transition, turns into muscle. And here's the same thing here, a little bit better highlighted, and you can see the color better. You see there's no color in here. That's a tendon. They have virtually no color. Right back to here, from right here down. is what I'm going to show you in a second. And this is tough as hell. It is tough. This is very erosive. It's mostly just eroded away. Bones eroded away in this great flood that we had that caused all these mud fossils. And what was left is this piece right here. This is tough as hell, and so is this. This and the glue where it glues in. And that is left in the ocean, and they think it took millions of years to make that. Here's what they're showing. That is what I just showed you from a living creatures. And I'm telling you, the things were just gigantic. I can't account for the sizes, but they were written about in the ancient texts. They were written about in the ancient texts. They said the exact same sizes that are here. Even Enoch wrote that giants were 2.5 miles tall. And that was in the ancient writings. They took that out of the original Bible-ish stuff because it was just too spectacular. They said, nobody's going to ever believe that. Just take it out and get it out of there. And they did the same thing to a bunch of other stuff, the texts that were like the Gnostic texts that talk about the earth being a dead creature and nothing but bodies, and that we come from light, which is, it appears to me that the sun was literally the true God of this system, and his son was Jesus Christ. And so anyway, that's a whole other issue we can get into, but it's all part of the same package. Now, they're saying this took millions of years. It did not. That little ball right there, this main stalk attached to here, there was a bone right up here, and that's when the ball attaches to a bunch of glue, which is up here, and a glue down here, and the bone was right here. And right there is the abrupt transition, and the muscles fall right off. I will show you this piece right here in my stuff. I showed it already, but I'll show you again. This is it right here. From right there down, that's the abrupt transition. This stuff is just weak. It erodes right away. This is tough. Now, remember that ball that I showed you? This is that ball right here. It sits right in the center of this, because it has to do this. So the center attachment is this ball right here. You see it? That's that ball. So you have to have gluey stuff here and gluey stuff here to keep it attached to the bone, but it still has to rock. And that's what this gluey stuff does here and down here. And the main attachment is in the center, so it can pivot a little bit. You see this? That's how you have to have movement everywhere. And that is that ball that I showed you on the one that's in the ocean. And the gluey stuff came right down here. And that's the abrupt transition right there where it just breaks off and they just fall off. And the rest is all tendinous and layer after layer after layer after layer, which is precisely what I just showed you. Here it is right here. Millions of years in one picture. No, that guy just died and fell over. It was done. This is the ball that I showed you that attaches to where the bone would be up here. All of these are connective tissues. These are tough. They're tough. And so this thing could rock a little bit this way, but not much. These can do like this. Muscles can go like that. These things, and that's, you have tendons attached to every muscle. Every muscle has a tendon attached to it, so that the muscle can take over after the tendon gets just a little bit of movement, and that locks it in to your body. So you got to be into biology, you got to be into anatomy, you got to be into chemistry, and I'm into all those things, Neil. And I know you are too. I looked you up. I could see you did a lot of studying, and I'm sure a lot of that is good, valid information. But when it comes to what the geology and history and even space now, as you saw Mars, it's not what you guys think. I don't think so. And it's certainly worthy of a discussion. And I hope people comment. And I hope they give me a thumbs up on this and say, you know, let's Neil, please. And contact Neil Degrasse Tyson. Contact NASA. Contact this NASA Explorers thing. I want to be part of this discussion. I have things to add that have been excluded because they're just too over the top. Let's just call it that way. And again, I can be very respectful. I gotten a little bit kind of bitter for a while there. And I'm trying to work myself out of that because it's just not worth it to feel that way. But when, you know, it's been a kind of a tough, well, just leave it this way. All I want to do is engage and present information. That's all. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, well, it changes a lot of things. But if things have to change, they have to change. And the things I'm showing could change things for the better, especially when you get into the light research and accelerating the light and all that. And again, Neil is an astrophysicist. And I want to talk about the redshift. I want to talk about expansion. I want to talk about the Big Bang. I want to talk about what light is really made out of, and muon electron neutrinos and electron showers and increased energy by creating electron showers. All that stuff I want to discuss. And Neil, please, my friend, I need somebody that is a science communicator, and you're the top guy. So you could change this thing around and either show me as being kind of silly or engage in at least taking a look at it. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not saying you got to buy into anything, but having so few people even interested, and even the people that are interested, they're scared. They're literally scared. I had one of my top guys. He confirmed everything I said. I'm not going to tell you what it was about or anything, but there was no question. It was 100% for certain. And I said, I could really use you if I mentioned your name. And he said, what are you doing, trying to ruin my life? So that was it. They don't go for that. You can't do it. You can't speak up and continue in your profession or your business even. So you have to get retired. And the guys I got, most of them are retired. They're out of the business now. Or they just don't want to be associated by name. Okay, as I said before, I am only here to show what I can show and then relate it to what the ancient texts say. Now, I don't know whether Neil understands these ancient texts, but this was the Gnostic text, which means they were supposed to be knowing. Gnostic means knowledge. And these were primarily hidden texts, and they weren't allowed by the church, let me put it that way. And the reason was, Jesus was not saying the same things that the church leaders were saying. Right here, this is supposed to be the secret sayings the living Jesus spoke to doubting Thomas, and he wrote them down. He was his scribe. And he said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. If that's true, then Neil, we got to talk. Now, what else did he say? I showed you that the earth literally was a creature and is covered with dead creatures. And this was something here, I think 56 is, he says, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. Who has found a corpse is superior to the world. So if you really look at the world, that's all you got is corpse. And then 80 says something about a body or something. I think it's 80. Yeah. Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found the body, and he who has found the body is superior to the world. All there is creatures. As far as I can find, there's nothing else but creatures. That's it. 100%. And again, this was what Neil was talking about when you die. Now, he is of the opinion, he sounds pretty solid on his opinion. I'd like to discuss it with him and see how he can account for all the things I'm showing. But here's what he did say. Now listen.
Want to know what happens after they die? You put together all scientific evidence, biological and physics. You have no existence after you die. You can believe what you want in a country where we have protection of religious expression, but if you want to ask science what science says about it, you go into a state of non-existence. You can say, well, why is that? What's that like? I'll tell you exactly what it's like. This is what it was like before you were born. You're not asking yourself, what was it like before I was born? I had to have some existence. You didn't. You have no existence, a state of non-existence before you were born. So I'm not given reason to think that your state of non-existence in death differs in any fundamental way from your state of non-existence before you're born, giving that much more meaning to what it is you can and should do while you're alive in this world. A lot of people...
No, I agree with that statement. It gives a meaning to when you're alive, but it gives more of a meaning than to you're just going to turn into dust. The meaning... What would the meaning be if there was nothing afterwards? It would just be to have a good time. And I think that's what did happen when people... This is where it gets tricky, and I don't want to push my beliefs on anybody else, or have the. I believe what I can see, and I'm factual. I'm a material guy. So when I see things that I have just shown you, and then I hear somebody say, no, that just doesn't mean anything. Well, I have a hard time with that. Does he understand the things that I have shown? And if he won't engage, then we'll never know whether he does understand what I've shown. But to look at what I have shown and then have this kind of an attitude that there is nothing other than just breathing oxygen and going to work every day, well, that's life. I'm not saying that isn't life, but I'm saying that there is a whole nother layer to this whole thing, I believe. And I believe before you were born, something existed of you. And you gain knowledge as you progress through these layers of, if you want to call it evolution, you're evolving as you grow and pay attention to things. Because that's another thing that Jesus said. Listen to this. This is another thing he said. He said, don't stop looking. Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. Well, you're not kidding. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished. Absolutely. And he will rule over the all. Well, once you know that you understand things that nobody else understands, well, I guess you could call that ruling over the all. I don't know exactly what it does mean. But there's a ton of stuff in here. You have to recognize what is in your sight. And that which is hidden from you will become plain. These are hidden. These are things that have been hidden from Neil Tyson because he doesn't understand, I don't think, the things that I have shown. It says there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest. And this is the time to look at these things with a critical eye, with a scientific eye. And I'm expecting Neil to do that. That's what I would expect from somebody with his, I looked him up. I looked everything he did here. I studied his background, and he seems to be legitimate. Although, does he understand my take on things and my evidence? If he sees my evidence and he still comes away with the same feeling, I would be very surprised. But he, until he sees the evidence, he's going to never, ever be able to understand or even believe what I am showing. And nobody can, even after they've seen it. The people that have a mindset, it's called menticide. You're so heavily invested in what you've been forced to believe that they can't get out of it. It's like brainwashing. Look at that, menticide. And I'm not trying to be nasty or be disrespectful. I'm just saying people get in this frame of mind that they just can't accept reality. And I'm showing reality. I'm not showing anything fake here. I'm not making any theories up. I'm just showing exactly what is absolute fact. And these things that I have shown here are absolute facts. There's no questions whatsoever that they are real. And you can say, no, that can't be this, can't be that, can't be this, can't be this, just looks like this, just looks like that. Well, and that's what I hear from people that are supposed to be the scientists. And then when they turn away, they never turn back. They never, ever turn back. So that's what I found. Anyway, Neil, I'm hoping you're the exception to the rule, my friend. And I love you all, my good friends, and thank you, and help when you can. Try to promote this. Try to get people to understand. The kids are being taught something just isn't true. And I think by now this is understood. This has been over 10, 15 years almost by now. I can't remember. This has been a long time. I've been pushing this hard. And it's a hard road to go down. I got to be honest with you. They don't like this kind of upheaval in their lives, even though it's true. That's what kills me. I go for truth. I can't believe. Well, I do believe now, but I would never have believed. Let me put it that way. That I would never have believed the responses I got from the people that I trusted to be the educators. They're the worst, absolute worst. Now, Neil, I think maybe be the exception. We'll find out. All right, Neil, please. I'm gonna put my email on there, and I'd love to have somebody from your group or whoever to contact me, and I'd love to be involved in this NASA Explorers situation where they can show what they have and I'll present what I have. I'm going to do it anyway. They're going to put it up. I'm going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter. But I'd like to be sanctioned, because all I'm going to do is put it up on my channel, which I do already, and it gets suppressed because it's not in their algorithm that appeals to people like yourself. They thumb me down. So they say, oh, these people don't like this kind of guy, so just keep them away from them and everybody will be happy. And that's what's happened in the algorithm. I've been pushed down literally because of academia has thumbed me down enough times in the beginning that I've been put into a group of people that are not interested in mainstream whatsoever. They're just really on the outside edges, most of them. I got a lot of people now, so I got a lot of people that are really truly interested, but they have no sway. And that's why I need somebody like Neil to discuss this. And then we can discuss it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's just right. That's all. As simple as that. All right, I love you all. I hope we can get this looked at. And I would present this same video and either take some clips and shots of whatever, but present it to your professors, your teachers, your scientific people, anybody you know that has an opinion and they're verbal about it, that wants to discuss this. I'm perfectly willing to present the evidence. I have the chemistry. I have all that stuff. I understand it top to bottom. I understand how it happened. I understand when the flood happened. Velikovsky had it all recorded in history. And even, like I say, Yale now has agreed with my exceptionally preserved mud fossils. Here it is right here. Right here. Exceptional preservation, soft-bodied creatures by silica-rich oceans. That was a worldwide flood, and it happened from a very rapid precipitation of silica cements. I've covered this over and over and over, and they even claim that these things don't even exist today anymore. This was before there was life on Earth. They're basically what they're saying. It says many of these are outright bizarre in appearance, do not resemble any organism alive today. And this is the first author of the paper. And it says, are these organisms some failed evolutionary experiment, or do they include the creatures that are alive today? See, this was before there was any shells or teeth or anything. They think that's just not true. It says the big part of the answer involves figuring out how the fossils were able to form. I know exactly how they form. It's nucleophilic substitution, and it was from this hot water flood and created a lot of silicates because of the skin is 50 times more silicon, and all these things eroded in the ocean, which they say silicon-rich oceans. They say there was entirely soft-bodied. That's because when they changed like this, they say, oh, that just hardened up because it was soft at one time. Well, this probably was. But I have a lot of things that were not soft-bodied whatsoever, like this bone right here somewhere. Wherever that is. I got bones, I got all kinds of things. Like this bone, that was not soft. That wasn't soft and mushy at one time. That was a bone. But it got invaded because of this hot water, silica-rich, salty water flood. And all of this stuff, I have evidence to support what I'm saying. So, and they say exactly what I told them to say. And this is a year after I published my paper about this, because I was upset they wouldn't talk to me. And it says they realized there was much richer in dissolved silica than it is today. That's because I told them it's 50 times more in skin. The skin eroded and left all the organs and so forth. It says it has enabled the animals to turn to rock in hours or years rather than thousands or millions of years. No, they said right away. And they were buried rapidly during underwater storm events. Everything was underwater. It was one gigantic flood. All right, and they're taking credit for it, and they're getting all kinds of funding to do all this stuff, and NASA, Exobiology grant, NASA postdoctoral this, Foundation of Complex Life, that Institute, Clark Fund, all these things. It's all about money with these people. I say, I presented all this stuff to Yale years before they took credit for the work. They never mentioned me. So anyway, Neil, I'm just hoping somebody, somewhere along the line, somebody will stand up, and I hope it's you, my friend. All right, thank you. You know, I want to mention something else. I've been doing this for a very long time. I finally wrote a book in February 2016. It was published about mud fossils, which I discovered, and Velikovsky, who was the one that did all the research about our ancient past, and mines in collision. Velikovsky brought worlds in collision, which was when Venus almost hit Earth. And that's what created all the mud fossils and their exceptional preservation, just like Yale says in their paper, which was long after that. Now, I got it up here 99 cents on Amazon. For 99 cents, you can read what I had to say back then. Some of the things have changed since then. But here's what I want to show you here. This was from David Attenborough, okay? And you see him all the time. I think he's getting quite old now. I think he's like 95 or something. But this goes back to August in 2014. And I wrote him a letter, and he wrote back. Very nice. He wrote back. And he says, "Thank you for your note. I'm somewhat surprised. I have never made a video on mud fossils. I have never made a video on mud fossils. Indeed, I know nothing of the subject. My interest is not in recent entombment," because I told him, I said, I laid it out for him how the mud fossils were created in this recent flood, which is true. And he says, my intent is not in recent entombment, but fossils are millions of years old. Well, these are right on the surface of the earth. They're not millions of years old. And again, Velikovsky did the research and said this was only 3,500 years ago. And it's all recorded from every single culture on earth, 100%, 100%. They all had the same stories. And so David Attenborough has spent his whole life doing this stuff and not understanding what he's seeing. That's my interpretation. I mean, I like it. Very, very nice of him to write back like that. And, you know, he just didn't understand what I was presenting. I mean, maybe I just didn't present it correctly, but he didn't understand it. Now, we need a broad discussion. That's why. They a little clip like this, a little clip like that, they go on about their life. This needs to be discussed, like what they're going to be doing with this NASA deal. All right, this is Space Out. Come on, Space Out. Tune in, turn on. And they're going to be showing all kinds of things going on, the launches and coverage of the rendezvous. Now, what they did was this recent Bennu asteroid that they went up and took a sample of. I know exactly what it is. And it is blood. They landed on a heart, and I show that absolutely without question. It's a heart, and it's exactly identical to Psyche. They're both hearts, and they're both made out of primarily metal. And that's because these things are in space. These gigantic things are in space from these gigantic battles in the heavens, is all I can tell you. Now, there's another thing. I could show this stuff. And again, when they analyzed that Bennu, and it's here on Earth, I already made my predictions. I already posted. Here it is right here. Bennu. The OSIRIS-REx team faces many surprises. Asteroid sample collection. It's back here on Earth now. I know what it is, and I've already posted what it is. It is blood. So if I'm right about that, I think we have to talk a lot. And I'm going to be right, because there's virtually no question. I do the anatomy, I do the biology, I do the chemistry, I do the physics, I do everything. And I have a lot of help. It's not just me. I have a lot of help. A lot of people are interested in this that are willing to contribute but don't want to be associated, as I said. So if Neil is truly a physicist and a scientist and a material scientist guy, I'm talking about things that I can present. And let me just show you Bennu and Psyche next to each other and what a heart looks like, and then you make your determination. All right, I'm going to wrap it up with this, but I'm going to tell you right now, they talked about battles in the heavens, and as far as I can find, everything out there consists of body parts. This is Psyche, and this is Bennu. You see these holes right here? You see these holes right here? You see these holes? That's a heart. And this one here, they landed on here, and they took a sample of this in one of these craters, and it's going to be blood. Now, it could be vein blood or it could be artery blood. One of them is going to have more oxygen than the other, and of course it's in space, so I don't know what the effect of being continuously bombarded by sunlight would do to it, but the metals will remain pretty. I believe they're going to be very consistent, like normal blood, and they have the sample is down here, Osiris Rex. They brought it down. I followed it very carefully. Now look at the tubing here. You see what a heart looks like? First of all, these are the main. The hearts break open and they leave these plumbing spots here just wide open, these valves. And there's a ton of other little places that things stick out, little tubes sticking out here and there all over the place. And that's what you see here. Watch this. This is Bennu. Now, look at this down here. You see that? That's a tube sticking out. And you see the dark and then the red? That's the two different bloods. And I believe that is the valve right there. It could very well be. Here's another tube sticking out. All right, these aren't impact craters, and these two are the valves. This right here is the connective tissue, which around, and that's the real tough stuff. It's tendinous material. Then you turn into the red stuff, which is sort of floppy and erodes away. And then you're up here in the valves. And these are literal valves. These are tubes. These are not all impact craters. I can't say they're all not all impact craters. Just, obviously, there's some here, but not many. This black and this red indicates the two different colors of blood. This is nothing more than saturated blood. Now, Psyche is very similar, but Psyche had to be next to some really hot source for quite a while because it's basically smelted. The outside, it looks to me like it is. I can't be certain of that, but it certainly looks like it to me. The other one is a pristine. Bennu is like brand new. And don't forget, this is that white layer that surrounds and has a tendon on it. You see where I showed you on Bennu that has this white layer there, and then it dipped down into this red gooey stuff, and then you saw the valves over here. This is the tendinous, tough stuff. And as I told you, everything is locked in with tendons. So the muscle in the heart does this. But this is where it locks in. So that is like always just a little bit of give to here. And this is where you really got the muscle. It twists. It's a big band that twists like that. And again, this is not going to lose. This is tough. This is gooey. But you see all the holes? There's holes all over the place in here. And then, of course, there's the big holes. And here it is right here. This white is the same as this. It's the same thing. That white is there. And then you get into the mushy red and brown and yellow looking stuff, which is this stuff. That's all it is. And then remember, these are tubes. These are literally tubes coming out of here. I know it's hard for the average mind to conceive of this, but Comet 67P is also a body part. Comet 67P is gigantic, absolutely enormous, and it's a body part. I cannot account for these things, but the ancient texts talked about these gods that had battles in the heavens. They actually had huge battles in the heavens. It's all recorded in ancient texts on a lot of different continents and cultures, even ones that were disparate. They had no connection between each other, and they had the same stories. And it was 3,500 years ago. And all of my mud fossils, all of my stuff, virtually everything, I just picked up off the ground. I didn't even dig for it. So this didn't happen that long ago. And again, that's in these ancient texts. Now, so I'm trying to relate the text to the material evidence that supports them. or discounts them. Either way, because some of the stuff, we need a big, long conversation about this. I presented enough to deserve a conversation about my research. If we're scientists, which I am, then we have to do this. There is no other alternative. It can't just be put aside because it's just too crazy. Everything's crazy when it's new, but this is meaningful crazy. This is not just spectacular crazy. This is meaningful. To me it is. I don't know about you, but to me this has a serious meaning, because I am of an age right now that I will stop breathing oxygen before too long. And when that happens, I'd like to know if I can go down the right-hand road or the left-hand road, if there is a road. I don't know if there is or not. But the way the ancient texts say, you can end up in a good place or a bad place. That's what I'm taking away from these ancient texts. Now, again, there's got to be some discussion, because everybody's got their own interpretation of these ancient texts. There's Islam, there's Christianity, there's the Indian types of religions, and Buddhism and Hinduism and all these things. And some of them say there's an afterlife. Some of them say you get reincarnated. Some of them say you go to heaven. Some, blah, blah, blah. And I now feel that this is a topic of discussion that needs to be had. All right, it's being avoided because it really changes a lot of things, and I cannot help that. That is just the way life is. When something happens, it happens, and I have no control over that. All I can do is present the material evidence, which I have done. All right, Dr. Tyson, I seriously would like to engage in this as a topic of discussion. And even if it's just between you and I. But anyway, my email is Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at Mudfossils, all one word, mudfossils.com. All right, and again, I think this discussion needs to happen for reality, for just to make reality real. All right, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, well, there's a lot of discussion to be had and a lot of changes to be made. All right, so thank you.